Sapiens. Homo sapiens. This, my dear audience, is actually what we decided to call ourselves in a narcissistic way. Knowing that sapiens actually means, or actually Homo sapiens means the wise man, and that other species weren't as lucky as we were getting unflattering names, neutral names. We already see how full of ourselves we are. But if we take a closer look at what we are doing on a daily basis and start analyzing objectively in a detached way what we are doing, we can clearly see that we behave in sometimes, and actually a lot of times, in a relational way, and we can be quite amazed by the abundance of such, let's say, pure stupidity in sometimes. Some examples are, for example, when we are easily tricked and manipulated by commercials or artists. This happens more than we think that it happens for us. Another example is more, let's say, harmful, is when we fall into stereotyping, especially when it becomes about discrimination. So are we really that evolved? Before answering this question, let's take a short detour and talk about evolution. And when we talk about evolution, we talk definitely about the brain. This is the most important organ we have, the most evolved organ compared to other species that we have, for a good reason. It helps us make better decisions, it has better cognitive functionalities, and it helps us with logical reasoning. However, daily life is not that easy. We might think it's easy and that we need our brains only for work, relationships, or like really huge problems or mathematical equations. But no, even meeting a new person can actually be a difficult question to answer. For example, here I'm standing in front of you, or before standing in front of you, one question that might arise in your head is whether you should trust my knowledge, trust my information. Basically, the question is related to my credibility. However, we don't have that much time to answer such questions deeply, dig deeper, come up with sound methodologies, rational decisions. So we take shortcuts. And in this case, for example, the shortcut is, well, substitution. This is actually one of the most important shortcuts, actually quite ingenious and intelligent shortcuts that we actually deploy on a daily basis for many tasks. It basically consists in replacing and substituting the first, so the original question, in this case, for example, whether you should trust me or not, by a more simpler one. In this case also, one of the questions that might have arose or risen into your head is whether you like me, whether you like how I look, whether you like my style, or even whether if you know someone who shares some of my traits, whom you trust or you distrust. Then you answer this question, you translate it back to the first original problem, and you have your answer, and things keep going. We display this kind of behavior in all kinds of questions or tasks that might face us on a daily basis. For a good reason, since deploying cognitive functionalities, reasoning, decision making is actually quite heavy on the brain. Our brains will literally explode if we do it for every single task we are facing. However, despite its ingenuity, this kind of shortcuts come with some disadvantages. One of these disadvantages is, like when I mentioned at the beginning, when we fall into some traps set by, let's say, con artists, despicable beings, or even if we ourselves trick our behavior into some discriminative actions. This, for example, might happen if we are biased by media due to some familiarity, negative information that we get just regarding some people coming from some countries. So this actually is the answer. We are actually not that evolved, well, biologically actually quite evolved, but when it comes to our behaviors, we are not really that evolved. Quite depressing, right? It shouldn't be actually the case, since we know this information, we can actually take things in our hands and consciously work on identifying these biases and then solving them, or at least be aware of them and keeping them under control. This is basically the way, or at least the first step, how we can really evolved and be the wise men that we are claiming ourselves to be. Thank you.